Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name's Scott and this is Golden Era. This is a preview for Body 0391. It's a little bit different to what I have been offering recently, so hang around, check it out, and let's go over to the bench cam. Okay guys, here we are. We're back at the bench. It's a good place to be. It's exciting to be able to show you what I've got finished. And I said in the intro that it was a slightly different looking drop for tomorrow night. Today is April the 4th, which is Thursday, and tomorrow obviously is the 5th. And this is going to be available tomorrow evening, so April 5th at 7 p.m. UK time. But yeah, this one's going to be a little bit different because I've only got one body, so I thought, well, I better make it a good one. And the email inbox has just been full of, when is there a blonde telly coming up? Are you doing any Swamp Ash? And you got any blonde stuff? Yeah, the answer was yes, but you know, I get asked a lot of questions. Do you have this? Do you have that? What's coming up next week? The element of surprise has to be in there, otherwise it kind of ruins it for everyone. So this one has kind of been under the radar. It's not one that I've actually shown at all. I don't think I've shown it at all. Apart from yesterday, I did a couple of sneak peek things on Instagram. But this is really going back. I haven't done one of these in ages, but this kind of goes back to the last one I can actually remember doing was Shell Pink telly, and I did a mint scratch plate, and I did all the hardware as well, and it was so much fun. It was just nice being able to build that entire picture and then take photographs of it and say, well, here you go, this is what I think that this should look like. And great fun. I don't know why I don't do it more often, and I maybe will from now on. I'll maybe start doing maybe one less body a week, but doing one built up with the scratch plates and or a pick guard and all the metal work as well. So I think the first thing to do is kind of get the details out the way, because it's probably there's the few questions I get asked usually is when's it going to be available and how much does it weigh, and so you know when it's going to be available now. So I'm going to get these scales out the way because they're just kind of ruining the vibe a little bit, so we'll get that done. Now, just for reference then, this is Body 0391, and we're going to start on pounds and ounces, just to let you see what this one's going to be. Make sure it's zeroed. And it is 4 pounds 5.7 ounces, and that is 1.976 kilos. So with that in mind, I can go ahead and get rid of the scales. And now we've got the hardware off, I can have a look in a bit more detail. So this was actually originally meant to be a blonde burst, and it was meant to be, the reason I've got this here is this was, I mean, you guys, if you guys know me, you kind of maybe know that there are two things that I like just based on what I show. One is sunbursts, particularly strats, and two is white guard, blonde burst, mid-50s style bodies. So this was kind of my thing here, was to do this, but I looked back and I was like, man, I don't recall the last time I actually showed a blackguard. So this one, looking at a few photographs, and one that was very kindly sent to me by Gareth Brough, was he's got a little soft spot for this type of thing as well, where it's just this very subtle bursting going on around the edge from, again, when I believe they would have sprayed the side with the opaque white, and then the overspray spills up over the edges, so it gives you this kind of burst effect, but it's not a deliberate burst from what my research has told me. So you can kind of see as well. I owe a thank you to the guy who left a comment telling me how to fix the white balance. That, coupled with something else, I have fixed the white balance on the camera, on the video setting on the camera, but I've also got another comment to say, can I leave this, because this helps that particular person establish what color this is. So if we're going to have a real life view of it, then both those things put together should help you guys. So yeah, this one is all about building that entire story, that picture, as much as I can for you, just to let you see what I would have done with this if I was given the chance of doing the hardware. So with that in mind, everything that I'm piling into the view on the camera is included. So we've got all the screws, neck plate screws, we've got the pickguard screws and the socket screws. Now, just to get this out of the way, because this is not vintage accurate as far as I know, I'm putting one of these jack cups in, because let's face it, this is a whole lot easier to work with than the one with the claw, the traditional cup. And I just want you to be able to put this thing together with no hassle. So that just pops in, 2 screws, away you go. All the other screw holes, well, apart from the control plate and the pick guard, the strap pin holes are piloted, and as you can see, your bridge will be piloted as well. Those are just down a couple of mil, but I'll do them the whole way for you. And yeah, the hardware was it was a later decision based on whenever I saw the body, whenever I did the Bakelite. And this is actually Bakelite, and I've got a whole bunch of these. I cannot wait to get into them a bit more. But we've got the ring on the back, which is as vintage, or whatever you want to call it, vintage accurate as I could get. And yeah, these tend to see quite a lot of, I mean, a lot of the time you see them, they're quite used and abused like this, because it is lacquer. It's lacquer that's on them, and it does suffer wear issues. A lot of the ones that you see that I know gets copied quite a lot is it's usually very shiny, and then there's a big massive bare spot here, which is obviously from somebody, I would imagine, leaning their pinky on to do their twangy thing. This is a mixture of that, coupled with a lot of strumming, which hopefully you can get those vibes across. But it's just really, really worn in Bakelite. It's not something I've really shown much of, but well, there you go. It's available with this body. So this is the real deal. This is proper Bakelite, phenolic fiber board. So very cool, very, very cool. I'll leave that off just now so that we can get another view of the color underneath. You can kind of see we've got this dirty outline of where everything was, but it's not a massive color difference. A lot of these old blackguards, you would have very, very, very anemic blonde coloring underneath the hardware, and then everything else is like pumpkin orange, which is can be quite a contrast. And I wouldn't say I was keen to stay away from that, but those older blackguards definitely have a certain look to them, which I am working on, and I've done some experiments, and I'm really happy with how they're coming out. But because I love this kind of transition, this 54 into 55 period, they went from this to this. So, you know, you've got that benefit. If you ever did want to change this out, you could stick that on and you'll have a completely different looking guitar. So that was kind of the idea with that. But as usual, with everything, I try and include all the details that I can. I've got router marks, I've got paint nail holes, and we've got the tan lines from, well, what I call the tan lines from the hardware. So there you go. That's kind of the picture that we've got now without the hardware. And this is what I look at most of the time on these bodies when I'm working on them. I have to keep building them up with the hardware to get that idea of what they look like. So I can bring this in a bit closer. Now the color is probably going to change on the screen, but you can just see it's mainly edge wear. It's there's a little bit of wear through here where you can see the blonde. There's a tiny little line of the blonde underneath that, and then discolored lacquer on top. And it's these things, you know, you get them in photographs, and it's all good. You know, you'll see these photographs when they go onto the website. But if I try and move that light over that, especially just if you follow the light, you can just see the checking. Now there's some things that a camera will pick up the detail, but sometimes you need that movement to kind of show something the best way possible. And it's no different on the back. It's all that same sort of checking. Something that I saw somebody describe it, and I thought that's a really good word to describe this, and they said puckered or like plucked style. It's sitting proud. It's definitely got that authentic vintage vibe going on. A lot of the time you see checking, and you can tell the lacquer's really thick, which isn't a bad thing, because I mean you can build this stuff up and then you flatten it off and you polish it and you've got a nice big glossy deep finish. It's easy to build it up. It's not difficult to build it up. You just have to keep putting layers on. You always see in these big long checking lines, they run usually right across the body, and you can see a shadow. You can see the highlight of the checking, and then you can see a shadow. And that's the depth of the lacquer that you're dealing with. Now, this does not have that. And this is why the video is a lot handier. It's just got that thing that old guitars have. And that's something I've been working really hard on to see if I can get those details. And you can see it here. You can just see it. You can see it's almost sitting up. It's sitting up a little bit, proud if you like. But again, I did like the word pucker. I thought that was a really good word to describe it. I can't remember. Saw it on Instagram a couple of years ago, and I have used it since to describe it. So that's the sort of vibe. I think this area up here, I think, is my favorite bit. I don't know why. I keep catching it in the light, just thinking, man, that looks absolutely stunning. So the idea, I guess, behind this one was somebody who's been careful because they haven't been, obviously, maybe they haven't worn a suit jacket or a sweatshirt or anything, which has eroded the edge. There's no big, large areas of paint missing. Likewise, there is buckle rash, but there's no paint missing. I kind of wanted to preserve this a little bit because I enjoyed how it was actually turning out. And the more I saw these old examples from, you know, the mid-50s, it was quite obvious that, now I don't know this, you know, the technical side of all this and stuff, but I do know that something changed, lacquer changed, or the process itself changed. And these old guitars that were falling apart and really worn, big sections missing here, and they were just flaking off. I mean, that old lacquer is just flaking off, those early 50s models. The mid-50s, something has definitely changed, because they don't do that. They don't do that kind of crocodile skin sort of flaky look to them. So this was all about more in keeping with that 54, 55 vibe. And you'll see in a lot of them that they all have these little dirty scratches and marks. I mean, again, I'm a sucker for the whole, well, being able to say, well, maybe somebody had a watch on or jewelry or something, and that's caused the scratches, which then leads to the checking. Essentially, you know, checking is accelerated if you break the surface of the paint, or the lacquer, should I say. That gives the lacquer a starting point to kind of, you know, if you hit it in the middle, it's like breaking glass. It just starts to go, it'll go from a weak point out to another weak point. And that's what all that's really helpful for, because it allows, you can see the checking. It's very busy, what I would call busy in this section. And again, that's true on vintage examples. You'll see how crazy it is. Which, again, it's not been an easy journey to get to this point where it's doing that, but it's been fun. You know, it really is fun, especially when you get to look at things like this at the end of it. So yeah, story behind this one. It's a gigged guitar, a player's guitar, but not necessarily player's grade. Again, it's mainly, I was quite keen to do it because I had seen a couple of vintage examples where, you know, the guitar is reasonably okay, it's in this kind of condition, and then the Bakelite's just completely hammered. You know, somebody's obviously, I mean, it's doing its job, you know, it's a pick guard, so it's to stop all this happening to the body, which it's done really, it's done well, and that's what they're there for. So this was kind of this pickguard, coming back to this for a second, this was actually, I guess, a mixture of different ones I'd seen where, you know, the lacquer, they were lacquered. I don't know how many coats they did, but you know, you see them, they have reactions where they kind of go bubbly, and it almost looks melted. So it's all these different ideas of just how to get it to do that and react in that way. String wear, well, yeah, you're going to see that on most of them, especially after, well, my maths is terrible, but 70 plus years, you're going to see all that kind of stuff. And then, again, coming back to this, you get these wear patterns where obviously you're strumming down, you've got a heavy hand, and you're just scuffing it off, coming down here. And then there's these lines that are going this way. I've been told a few different things of how that happens. I would love to be able to actually advise you on how that's done, but I know I'll get somebody shouting at me saying that's not how that happened. So that's just kind of a mixture of a few of my favorite scratch plates, or sorry, pick guards that I'd seen. The interesting thing about the hardware is that whenever I see the hardware on these old guitars, it's still shiny. It still has that element of the gleam to it, but it doesn't, you know, you get scratches, which this has got, and you get pitting as well, which this has got a little bit of, as you can see it in the light here, but it's not that flat grey thing. Brass compensated saddles are a must for me. These are, I think that's the thing when you get the non-compensated one. I think that's where people start to shy away from this whole Telecaster thing, because you don't have that element of control. So these are something I would use on all my bridges. If I'm going to sell something to you guys, I want you just to be able to bolt this on and get it intonated, and then away you go. There's no hassle. I actually found a bridge in my parts drawer which has got the the non-compensated ones saddles on it, and I just thought, man, you'd have to be pretty hardcore to go with that if you want a guitar that's gonna be easy to set up and stay in tune. So yeah, that's something that I'm a big fan of. Again, hardware, shiny, scratched, scuffed, a little bit discoloration here and there, but it's still shiny. And again, that's going to help build that entire picture properly. And the knobs, again, darkened, you know, like everything, you can see a theme going on here. Everything's darkened a little bit. Everything's just got that little bit of grime and dirt, but nothing's actually destroyed. Nothing's falling apart. There's no plating falling off anything. Now, I have to admit, I wasn't going to age the felts, because I think you should be able to put the strap onto your guitar, have this pushed up against it, and get maximum use out of that. I don't think you want flat aged felt that you basically would have to replace, because that's what, obviously it's a small inexpensive part that costs a couple of pennies. So those are fresh, but obviously everything else is dark and slightly worn. So I've already shown you this already. Well, I'll show you again. I like these. You can, I've got one here, you can do the vintage style cups, and these have the claw that goes in behind. and then this sits up against the claw, and your jack goes through, and then you tighten it in here. But that just sounds like an awful lot of hassle. So these are far more user-friendly, I think. Again, 2 screws, they're supplied, aged screws might I add, and yeah, pop it in, away you go. Simple as. Neck plates, these are always a bone of contention with me, because these are one of the things that people don't know what they do. I think it's the fuming method. I think it's the white, I looked into it a bit more, it's a white acidic fuming method. There's a reflection in the light, so it's still shiny, but scuffed. A little bit worn and darkened in the corners. But these are all, these are all those little details that add up to this complete picture. So obviously I don't want this to turn into a 30-minute video for one body and a few bits of hardware. So I will probably stop I'll probably stop going on and going over the details that I've already gone over. But yes, this is one of my favorite pieces I have done. I think just because I've been able to build that whole picture. I can't wait to see who gets this. I'm super excited about it because I think you're going to have a great time building this up. I would like to say now, this is something that I'm going to do more of, so don't panic. If you don't get this one, if you can't do it just now, if you can't stretch to it just now, that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem. I don't plan on going anywhere. I have got more Swamp Ash coming through the system, so this is just one body of several that hopefully will be coming through in the next few months. Now, leading off this particular body, I realized I didn't actually do a full kind of 360 of it, which is meant to be the point of the video, but you can see that true to the majority of the originals, most of these are actually more worn on the top and the back with the buckle rash and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit of arm wear, but it's just edge wear more than anything else. So that is probably a good place to leave it because I've shown you everything. So body 0391, available tomorrow night at 7 p.m. UK time, and that's April the 5th. Before I go, and very quickly, this is why it's always good to stay to the end, because feeding off the whole Blonde Burst idea, we have a preview of what's coming up soon. Swamp Ash, 2-piece Swamp Ash, jazz body, in a rather lovely Blonde Burst again. Mock-up, and I am super annoyed that I didn't find the the pickup covers that I used, because that would have just looked absolutely fantastic. But yeah, quick preview. I haven't got a serial number on this one yet. It'll be the mid 039 something, mid 90s. So this is coming up very soon. Obviously super excited to be able to show you the two of them side by side so you can get the kind of idea. And unsure about the hardware of this one yet. Might do a scratch plate, but I know that you Jazzmaster guys, you love the conversation. You love the conversations about the trem and the bridge. So I might just leave that. I might just leave this as a body and a pick guard. But everyone, thanks so much for tuning in again. Apologies for waffling. I probably did waffle a bit too much this time. I'm really looking forward to getting this one on the website. Stay tuned for photos on Instagram. I'll have more available tomorrow at some stage. Until the next video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.